Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Get Your Popcorn. I have a special guest on today. I've got Physics. I'm really excited. One of my favorite content creators on both TikTok and Instagram. So, do you mind introducing yourself and telling everyone a little bit about what you do?
What up, world? It's your boy Physics. I am a rapper who also does movie reviews on TikTok and Instagram. I've had a few albums that came out in the past. And during the Ponderosa, the pandemic, tried to figure out something I wanted to do outside of music, and I always had a love for movies. Always went to Fantastic Fest in Austin, Texas for like almost 10 years straight. And I was always that person where people will always go to and be like, hey, what's coming out? What's a good movie and stuff like that. And I was like, well, let me do my own, movie critiques, especially because there's not a lot of black film content creators. So I felt like that was a lane that we can have more critical analysis on film from black content creators, and especially from that viewpoint. So I just wanted to give my own word and views on certain films. And the movie talk community and film talk community has embraced me with open arms, and I've been enjoying it ever since.
Yeah, it seems to be like a really supportive community. I interviewed Blizzflix. I don't know if you follow her on TikTok at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was interviewing her yesterday, and she said the same thing. Like she just has been felt so embraced by everything, and it was something both her and I were really nervous about. Like as women, like film bros, that's a lot of white dudes.
Yeah.
It's a lot of white dudes, but they seem to be very nice. They don't wanna capitalize and be, like, the only people who have this space, so that seems to be
Yeah.
lovely.
Which, I mean, sometimes it's hard because you could never know what reaction you're going to get, especially if you have a difference of a view and how people are going to respond in the comments. You just never know. And a lot of times you got to take it on the chin because some people are just trolls, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, I think for the most part, it seems to be pretty okay unless if there's any, criticism of, Chris Nolan or, the MCU, that that's
You
when it
don't know
gets
what you're talking about.
that's when it gets yeah, Interstellar's the greatest movie that's ever made. You're like, "Okay."
Nobody can have different views. And I feel like that's one of the things I always try to do. I love film. I love the arts. I feel like I want people to go into the arts. I rap. I want people to listen to the music I make. The movies I see, I want people to watch them. Even if I don't like the movie, I want the person to have their own opinion of the film. There are movies that are bad to me that I like, but I know if I gave it to someone else, they're not going to like it. So it's like, make your own decision. Don't listen to other people and then going, well, yeah, this is what this movie is, especially if you've never seen it. So my philosophy is always it's like, yes, you can listen to what I'm saying, but also go see it yourself and have your own opinion about it.
Totally. I mean, that's what I've been trying to do too with this podcast is I review and talk about movies, but I almost always review and talk about movies that I like because I find that people are, we're seeing so many sequels, remakes, a lot of safe choices. And I want to be like, no, I want you to this movie from 55 is cool. I want people to be excited by film and find the positivity in it, or even I've done stuff that isn't the Scooby-Doo live action movies are not good, but I love them and I want people to be excited about that stuff and
There's a
embrace.
large group of people that love them.
Yeah, and so I mean for the most part I think I have pretty okay taste, but there are certain blind spots of anything that came out when I was a kid where I'm like, this is Space Jam, objectively not great. I love it so much.
Yeah, but it's art. It should be about how it makes you feel. And then all you're doing is then letting the rest of the world know how you feel about this thing. Yes, for me, this is what Space Jam to me. If you want to come on and slam, if you want to jam, that's how you feel about it.
Yeah.
But, you love what you love and you like what you like, and then you dislike what you dislike. And that's just how it should be. I feel like we've gotten so territorial about things that people somebody can't say, well, I didn't like this. Now, there are people that don't do it with good faith. And that's where things get a little shaky when there's ulterior motives of why we don't like this movie, because who's behind it as far as race and things like that. Then I won't like this movie because this is a black film. Or I won't listen to black creators talk about this black film in a certain way because I didn't see it that way. I feel like with all art, you have to kind of get into somebody else's shoes sometimes and then, see it from their viewpoint. It's one of the reasons why I don't watch trailers. I try my best to stay away from seeing anything because I want to take the movie on from what the director wants to give me and not what the marketing is trying to give me. Because sometimes the marketing gives too much. Sometimes it gives enough that I can just kind of figure it out. And I don't want to mess up or have any thoughts of what this movie should be. I just take the movie as what they're giving me and then I take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, I found that with, like, Sinners, the marketing, at least from what I saw, was, like, weird and, like, made it look like an action movie, and I was like, "God, this movie looks dumb." And then I heard everybody talking about it, I was like, "Well, I'll go see it," and then I watched it, and I was like, "Oh, this is, like, one of the greatest movies ever made." But they tried to market it like an action movie, and they dropped it in April, which is also so odd, but
Well, I mean, they're trying to get people in seats, and they're like, "We're gonna get people in seats. Are we gonna talk about possibly appropriation of the arts and passing down tradition of word of mouth and oral tradition? No, that's not gonna get people in seats. That's what get people in seats. So that's why they did it the way they did it. But
Yeah.
it doesn't. It never shows you exactly what the movie is going to be, and that's why I was like, you kind of have to just see it on your own, and then just figure it out from there.
Yeah. So when did you first, like, find a love of movies?
When I was really young, so at a certain point in my life, my mom was in the army and she was moving around a lot, and she didn't want me to move around as much as her. So she sent me to live with my grandma in Mississippi. I'm young. Cable is nowhere in Mississippi. So what would happen is my aunt would send us tapes of things she recorded from HBO and BET and just TV in general. And then we had a Piggly Wiggly up the street. And just from there, my uncles never returned certain movies like House Party, Purple Rain, what's that movie called? Hell Night. Like there was just certain movies that just never made their way back. And I would just remember watching these movies over and over again. I mean, even like at 4, I was like in love with the movie RoboCop. Why am I watching RoboCop at 4? I don't know. But I felt like, hey, I like this movie for a certain reason. And I had all the toys, even though that was not the point of that movie, but that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like I said, House Party, Purple Rain, just like these, and also just like some weird movies that like you just never hear about again. There was this, I can't think of the movie off the top of my head right now, but it was a Chuck Norris movie where the premise was basically Chuck Norris versus Michael Myers. That was the premise of it. The person couldn't be killed unless he got like 12 roundhouse kicks. And I would just constantly watch these movies and then have, place myself into these movies and things like that. And I just started just loving them. And it wasn't until I got older, got to high school, and I told my mom, I was like, hey, I would love a horror movie collection. I don't know where it came from. I just was like, I just want a horror movie collection. So this is still prime VHS time. She gave me 4 VHSs. She gave me Candyman. She gave me Evil Dead, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, and Child's Play because I enjoyed Chucky as a kid. And just from there, I just started collecting and started going to DVDs. And then the rapper Nas did a song called Rewind that was inspired by some movie called Memento. And I was like, what is this movie called Memento? And I had to go figure out what that movie was. And then I figured out who Christopher Nolan was.
Yeah.
And then I just started going down a rabbit hole of just trying to watch as many movies as I could and going into message boards to talk about movies and find like-minded people that talk about movies. And it became an all-encompassing thing. And I started having like a knack of doing just like editing on the fly if I had a phone on me or like wanting to film things all the time just to have, an archival footage of things going on around me. And people are like, oh, you kind of have an eye and a talent for it. And I didn't know that I was learning all of this stuff while I was watching these movies. And, every day I feel like me as a music artist, I wouldn't be as good as a writer if I didn't know how film structure was, if I didn't know how to tell a story or, go a Quentin Tarantino way. If I'm going to tell a story, I could tell the middle part, then do the beginning and the middle of the song, and then do the end and the front, the beginning and the middle, and then the middle and the end. You learn how to be able to play with your art. And I feel like for me, cinema and music go hand to hand. And the same love I have for hip hop is the same love I have for film.
Was there a movie that sort of changed for you what, like, film could be? Like, I feel sometimes like there's a period where you go on and like movies are like one thing, there's a thing that you do, and then you see a movie and you're like, "Whoa, that's art." And it like sort of, I don't know, hits you in the face. Like for me, it was like the first time I saw like Al Pacino, The Godfather, where I was like, "This is different."
Fun fact, I have not seen The Godfather yet. I am in a weird place of I've gotten to the point where I was like, I'm just gonna have to watch it in theaters. And it's always in theaters. I
Yeah.
just haven't made it yet. But I will. I will.
I don't need to tell you how good it is.
I know. I've heard. It'll be on TV and I'll be like, it's not in the theaters. I am going past this. But when I watch it, I'll let you know. Actually, I'm probably going to do a video about it whenever it happens. But it was Memento for me. That
Okay.
was the movie, just seeing the structure, the whole backward storytelling, the Leonard Shelby story that is also going on, and just things weaving in and out. And I remember watching, it was like, I just saw something special. And the craziest thing was, it was like right after I saw that, the next movie I watched was Donnie Darko. And then that was another thing of, especially when I was a time part, it was a time in my life where I was having those type of thoughts about life and death and just how things are placed in this universe. That movie also came around at the same time. So it was like those two movies made me go, wow, what cinema can be. It could be something special. And you could say, and it made me want to pay attention to the small things, the little details that, the director slash writer put so much into, and that, we as a viewer sometimes miss. Now it's a thing, Easter eggs is a huge thing now. But like, even when they were doing it back then, now it's like I was starting to pay attention to just these small nuances that were put in film. And it just opened up the world for me. And then when I started collecting DVDs, I watched every feature on DVDs. So like I was a huge, if there was a director's commentary, I was there.
Mhm.
Especially if it was a comedy film, I was definitely there because of I had no idea how that was going to go. I feel like Tropic Thunder is probably one of the best director commentaries of all
Oh,
time,
that
all because of Robbie Downey Jr. not dropping character until the DVD commentary. And it's like little small things like that made me appreciate just the media of film and just the possibilities of what you can do.
yeah, I love that movie is so great, and I love how much it just, like, makes fun of, like, method acting and how much actors will just, like, do anything for a paycheck and that they think it's, like, they're so self-important about it.
Yeah, it's a timeless movie because Hollywood is never going to change from that. So
Oh, no, like, it's exactly the reflection of, like, what we're seeing with the Riyadh Comedy Festival right now.
yeah,
It's, like, the same thing where they're like, "No, it's fine that they killed that journalist. It's good,
and
bro."
kidnap the comedian. It's all jokes. It's all
Yeah.
jokes.
Yeah,
Nothing
oh,
serious. There's nothing serious going on in this world. And we shouldn't reflect that in our art because, that's not what we do with art during our time period.
no. Actually, it was interesting, last night I went and watched Mark Maron speak, and did, like, a Q&A afterwards, and he did, I don't think he was trying to be funny, but he did, like, a 5 full minute rant about that, like, thing, and it was great. I'm really sad that he's gonna not be doing his podcast. I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
we need you."
It's like he's leaving. And that's the crazy thing. It's like usually when like stuff is happening, there's always like a voice that's the time that they decide like, yeah, I'm out. And then it's just
Yeah,
like, no, no, just but it's like, you know what? He gave us like what 1,500 episodes of WTF.
yeah,
So and like he's another person that's important. Like, we do this film criticism thing and we do it off the backs of people like Siskel and Ebert, Roper, like people we used to watch and see how it was done. And then of course we go online and the online stuff is a little shaky with certain people, but you got your Chris Stuckmans who go on to do their thing. The crew that I kind of grew up with was they were called Spill.com, but then they went to Double Toasted, and then they became my friends later on, and they've been doing film criticism in Austin, Texas since the 90s and still doing it till today. But like we go off the back of that, and then it was something special about Mark Maron, even though like it was great to see when he talked to his peers, but whenever he talked to filmmakers and
mhm,
whenever he talked to actors and he got them to open up and talk about especially their process because he wanted to learn how to act. That was a special thing because we're kind of losing, unfortunately, due to, people that are in our space, influencers talking to other stars and stuff like that and not asking questions to make them think about their process or the art that they're doing. Everything is kind of shallow and on the surface level. So we're kind of missing that. And that's one of the saddest things I'm going to miss about Mark Maron leaving, is that we're going to miss, that space of a person coming to an interview, actually knowing about who the person they're talking to and actually having an interest in them and not just trying to get views.
Yeah. And, like, I mean, and the podcast has remained, like, audio only just because they don't clip it, they don't do I mean, I clip my podcast, so I can't really judge. But I do like, there there wouldn't be my podcast without Maren's podcast because essentially, like, me being able to talk generally, I'm by myself, but me being able to talk into something for, like, an hour all comes from listening to him talk in that first 15 minutes and go, like, "This is my favorite part of the show." But, yeah, it's interesting. There isn't just like, Alex Cooper and Call Her Daddy is, like,
Yeah.
just anytime she gets anybody on that show, you're like, "Come on, like, ask a question that matters."
Yeah.
She's
But
had
it's a talent, and a lot of people don't have it. Some people have a gift of gab where they could just start talking to somebody and they'll just open up and tell things. That's why I think Mark starts the podcast the way he does. He starts it in the middle of a conversation. And like a lot of times the other person on the side doesn't know it started until like 5, 10 minutes in. They're like, "We're recording." Oh, okay. And then they just keep going. But it's that ability to make somebody feel comfortable to be vulnerable in a space with you and to want to be able to, for you to tell them, to tell them things about yourself. John C. Riley's a person that doesn't really talk much about anything, but like, and you could tell like it was a process for Mark Maron to get anything out of him.
Mhm.
And now, anytime I see John C. Riley, he was on what was it called, Throwing Fits podcast, and he was talking about fashion because he's a fashionable guy, and he was talking about how to put stuff on. And I was like, I don't know who this person is. Like, this is a whole different person, but it feels like it opened him up to not be in his process and actually allow people in and to show who he actually is. And I feel like that's also helpful because I feel like we're in this weird place with, are we going to have superstar actors the way we used to in the 90s? I'm not sure because of now that social media plays such a big part in what's going on. Who is it? Ethan Hawke's daughter. Well, I can't remember her name. Is it Maya?
Maya, yeah, Maya Hawke.
Yeah. And she was talking about, now currency for getting films done is how many people follow you on Instagram. So it's like, and if your numbers are low, we got to bring some influencer in, somebody that doesn't act into so that we can have this movie produced. And it's like, we're at such a weird place where art is it's at this point of art's trying to say something, but art is also needs to be commodified. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And unless you already built your name and you're a new person coming in, if you don't knock it out the park the first time, it's going to be hard. We don't give people the chances that we used to when it comes to art. And I feel like we're in this weird place where something great can happen or something sucky or bad can happen. And I mean, just from what's going on with streaming and how the theaters are going, like, I don't know where we're going to be in the next 10 years, but I'm hoping that everything leans on the side of the creators and the creatives at the end of the day.
So too, like with everything going on in the world and with like the rise of the conservatism, like I hope that it has the same trajectory that we saw in like the 50s and 60s, like and like the creatives like pushed back and then we got like I think the greatest decade of film with like the 70s.
Yeah.
Because they had something to say. They're like, "No, fuck the American dream. This is bullshit." Like all these things, and then these, inspiring people with the civil rights movement, and then the feminist movement, like speaking out and pushing back against this. And I'm hoping that that isn't buried with the control of the algorithms on the internet, because I think it's just such an important time for art to start saying something again.
I mean, the counterculture is always going to be there. There's a ton of, trans creators and directors now finding their voice. What was the People versus Joker? Like, you have all of these voices that are coming out, and there's only so much an algorithm can do before the people just find it themselves.
Mhm.
And then you have places like, an Alamo Draft House and Angelica Film Center, these spots where they'll be like, no, we'll play your film here. Word of mouth still works. And that's one of the great things about, online. Word of mouth works still. And I feel like the counterculture is always going to counterculture. You can try your best to suppress it as much as you want, but eventually it's going to be heard. And then, I mean, we're in this bit of serendipity with movies like Sinners, and then right now, one battle after another. Whereas, like, or Eddington, where you have these weird moments, whereas, like, there's a mirror reflecting back to what's going on or things we need to be actually talking about and focusing on. I mean, Superman with certain stuff in that movie that is reflecting things that are going on now. So it's like it's happening. And I hope people don't just, you know, glaze over it while it's happening. Actually pay attention to the things that are being said. And, we're at the point where it's like it's poking you, but we'll get to the point where it's gonna eventually have to be like, all right, we gotta have to punch you in the face with what we're trying to say. And not hide from it. Especially with everything that is going on. I mean, like I said, everything going on with ICE, and then we have one battle after another coming out around a time where all of this is rising of trying to deport people or trying to get their 1 million, deportations that, the government's trying to do. And at the same time, we are watching a movie that has ICE detention facilities going on in it. Like, I feel like, like I said, we are at a possible very special time. And then you can see reality TV is already shifting towards conservatism with who they pick and how they are showing people of other races and other sexualities on TV. You can kind of see like conservatism is trying to, be a little bit louder. Like, it's kind of crazy that we have so many reality TV shows coming out of Utah at the moment.
Yes.
Yeah, you could kind of see what's going on there. But then you can also see somebody like Chris Chrisley, who was huge before he went to jail, got very conservative, even though he probably already was, but that's not how they showed the program. And then when he came out, his show flopped because people don't want to be, watching somebody that might be involved with their leader. On top of that, you have now influencers that help promote him now feeling like, oh, I wish I would have never done that. But it's a little too late. You already platformed him. And now you face the consequences of people turning their back on you because where we are in a country at this moment. And I feel like we're going to have more fearless voices of people speaking up. The fact that actors are speaking up about what's going on in the world and not caring about what the backlash might be is important.
Absolutely. Go birds, fuck ice, and free Palestine. I I hope arts gets louder and more into about all this into the mainstream because like I'm in a position in my life where I've had to make like a lot of cuts with people in my life. Like I live in Canada, right? And we have a province that we call Canadian Texas
Hmm.
called Alberta. And my family on that side, I've cut them all off because they're like, the pro Trump crap was crazy. And I'm like, absolutely not. And then to be disappointed on the different side of the spectrum by people I've had like quite, who I felt were similar to me, who were quite left, quite liberal, be so disengaged with everything. And like, there's that quote from Malcolm X where he talks about like the dangers of the white liberal. And
Yeah.
it was just like, it just made me like, I've just been reevaluating everyone in my life to be like, oh my God, you're not like, you're just as bad. Like, you're so complicit. I've heard nothing about, gun control or violence or Palestine, like none of these issues iced, but then you post a thing about Charlie Kirk. That's the
Yeah.
only thing, or like, we have, I don't know how much Canadian history you know, but we had this horrible thing called residential schools,
Yeah.
just horrific, horrific, horrific. And the amount of people from my small town that posted for Charlie Kirk and then nothing for Truth and Reconciliation Day, other than, but I heard them talking about it as like a holiday because they get it off work. And you're like, no, this is like a international day of like this, not international, this is a national day of mourning for the children that like never came home.
Yeah.
Right? And, like, just the complacency from people is just crazy, and so I'm hoping with film and music and stuff that it just, like, penetrates the incredible privilege or I've had conversations with people, like, one of the things that people have been doing here since Trump has been threatening to annex us, has been, like, boycotting, like, American products and going
Yeah.
to States, and, like, I'm a little bit scared because I go through people's phones, so
It's okay. I mean, I live next to DC. So it's like I'm in the area. I mean, the majority of people that live here work for the government. Of course, we're on A lot of people are on shutdown. And the crazy thing is, majority of people that work for the government that live in DC are black. And I feel like they kind of know what they're doing, especially as far as DC, because they want to move. They want to gentrify DC from being Chocolate City. They want to turn it into, what they've been calling it is like Vanilla Latte City. And it was like that, but they've never left. DC has always been a black city, and I feel like it's always going to be. But where art comes in is that whole concept of putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. When it comes to the Charlie Kirk thing and everything else, they don't see themselves in the person that's being, illegally detained. They
Mhm.
don't see themselves in somebody that looks like me. They don't, see themselves in someone that's LGBT unless they're one of those letters. But even if they're one of those letters, if there's another letter and they're not them, it might not touch them. School shootings, if you're not anywhere where it's in your community, I mean, I live in the United States. It can happen at any given moment. But if it's not something that you think will ever happen to you, you don't think about it. But that man that got shot looks just like me.
Mhm.
And I know somebody that's like him. And then you simplify him as a person that just wanted to debate, and you take out all the harm that he caused. And the issue I feel like a lot of times with things like that is, like I said, there's the whole good faith thing. Whereas like he said very vile things towards people like me. And I don't think people understand when you've lived in a country that has used you to build it and then act like you've done nothing throughout the whole time period. And then when you start getting something because of Reconstruction and you were told you're going to get 40 acres and a mule and you're going to live this life. And every time you built something up, somebody would make a false accusation and then burn it down. And then keep repeating it from Tulsa all the way to Florida and Eatonville and Greenville and just every black community that thought they were going to make it, and then bring them down, and then constantly put them in, welfare state, put them in projects and put them in all these places, and then start going, see, they're lazy. They don't work. And you just constantly hear that. And you know that the biggest thing is that if you had the same equity as them, that they can no longer live off of mediocrity, and as well as nepotism, because now they have to actually work against you, especially when you know that you've grown up and been told that you got to work 2 times as hard as anybody that doesn't look like you because nothing's going to be handed to you. So if you are a black pilot, I feel like I would feel very safe if a black pilot came on a plane, because I know he went through a lot to get to this point
Mhm.
before he could fly this plane. Nothing was handed to him, even though that's always the issue. People were worrying about things being handed to people, but it was like, no, when you are on third base and then the other people that you are worried about are in the parking lot, and then now they're at third base with you, and you're still there, and you're like, why am I not moving? It was like, well, sometimes you don't have the fire under your ass because you don't have 100 years of racial tension and prejudice against you for you to have to go against your life on easy street. Like, you have had a home ownership since the 1700s, and we're still trying to get it.
Mhm.
Um, so it was like when you can have movies and documentaries that actually show this, and people that are not like you can actually watch these movies and not just look at it as entertainment, but there are some realism, there are some truths to it. Things can change. Like, we've had the Palestinian documentary that won the Oscar last year. That is hard for anybody to watch, but a lot of those people that created that are no longer here.
Mhm.
And then we have another one that's coming out that seems like it's possibly going to win an Oscar as well. But like, those things work. People seeing atrocities and hearing from the actual people that are there, it works. Having people from Greta and everybody going over there and filming it, it works. But I think a lot of people are just a little too comfortable and their surroundings and feel like, well, I'm safe. But the issue is when people have warned you, whether it's the trans community, the black community, the Latino X, Latinx, and anybody's like, hey, this stuff is happening. You might want to pay attention, because if you don't, guess what? Before you know it, they're knocking at your door. And then there's nothing we can do. Because once everybody else is taken care of, now it's class. And now you have to actually deal with it, because now you can't get by on being white.
Absolutely. And like it's one of the things too with, like, I've watched like, you were talking about the rise of, like, conservatism and, like, people from Utah, like, people were looking at, like, Nara Smith or The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives and whatever, and, like, I see a lot of women, like, falling into this narrative, like, trad wives, like, "Oh, maybe I do wanna be taken care of, like, I don't wanna work a 9 to 5." It's like, "No, we've only been able to have credit cards for 30 years." Like, we're next. Like,
Yeah,
we're next. It doesn't matter that you're white. Like, we're we weren't allowed like, my grandmother couldn't get divorced. Like, she was not allowed to file unless she proved infidelity. It didn't matter that her husband was an alcoholic. It didn't matter that he beat her.
yeah.
Like,
Or he
my
had a family on the other side of town.
no. Oh, that was what it was, is he had
Yeah,
another baby, thank God. She says with somebody else,
yeah,
right? And, like, they're coming for you, and it's to listen to a bunch of white people talk about immigration, like, like, you're like, where are you from? Like, just because you
yeah,
came here in, like, the 1700s or the 1800s doesn't mean you're not, like, an immigrant. Or people, like, that I know, like, people who are Irish, and you're like, we escaped colonization and then came here and did that. Like, you have to have some sort of, like, perspective that, like, we just turned around and then perpetrated the same abuse on different people.
yeah. I mean, if we're gonna take it to the movies, that's Sinners.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's like he's not he doesn't see himself as a bad guy, Remick,
Mhm,
but it's like what you're doing is you're taking somebody else's culture, even though you don't notice it. You're doing the same thing that happened to you, which allowed now shifted you here to other people. You unfortunately became the unaware oppressor to somebody else. But the one thing, like the whole Tradwife thing, I mean, nostalgia is very dangerous because you paint nostalgia in whatever way you want to. So it's like, oh no, we're being taken care of. Just forgetting the patriarchal society and the things that come with it and the power that you lose.
mhm,
And so if you want to say no to something, you can't because now you have to follow this rule. So like, and just like you said, the nostalgia of, oh, I get to take care of the kids, things get taken care of. Like they also try to play these games like, I'm going to still have my voice. And it's like, no, you're not. That's not how this game is played. And that's why I was like, I always get wary of like, even like my female friends and like I'm talking to them and it's anybody that's where it's like, if it's a man they're with and his whole thing's about just like what he can do for them and money wise, I'm like, be wary of that.
mhm,
Because a lot of times money is a trap. And like sometimes in like nostalgia here in the US, like women couldn't leave. Even if the husband was an adulteress and had a kid on the other side of town, the woman couldn't leave because where was she going to go?
mm,
I mean, outside of like, unfortunately, like women of color never got to do the whole like stay at home. That is a recent thing for women
mhm,
of color. They had to work. Black people had to work outside the house. So it was always a two-person working household. That was always a thing. And of course, when the war happened, World War II and World War I, women went in, worked, and then was like, oh, I have a sense of what I'm doing and it's affecting the rest of the world. I kind of like this. I'm not just raising kids. And then it was like, whoa, you got to temper that down. That's a little too much. And like you said, once the credit cards come in, then everyone's like, why is divorces spiking? Because women now have a say and they don't have to stay in something that they don't want to stay into. And they actually can build money to actually escape. Hold on.
uh,
You're going to clip that out.
yeah. Okay, you didn't do it, like, at the camera.
Yeah, ma'am. Hold on. Sneezing fit. But I know we actually escape. We can actually escape like whatever patriarchal prison that we are in. And then, I mean, just like I can always bring it back to movies, but this is how we get things like Stepford Wives and a critique on how, patriarchal society is in this world. Women talk and just films like that. Like it's always going to be reflected back. And I feel like, yeah, especially like women talking like it's like, hey, it seems like it's bubbling again. And crazy thing is, it's like whenever they talk about, because Trump got rid of it. Now I can't even remember the name of it. Shoot, what was the law where
Roe v. Wade.
no, not Roe v. Wade. Where they're like, it's not DEI. It's before DEI. But why can't I think of it? Can't think of it right now. But I'm like the affirmative action. When it came to affirmative action, the biggest people that got anything from it were white women, and then veterans, and then black people. But
Mhm,
no, Asians, then black people. But when it ever got talked about, it was always talked about black people are the ones that were unfairly getting put places. But it was like white women didn't were also part of affirmative action because they couldn't get in these jobs either.
Mhm.
But like when time came and they got rid of it, then it's like, oh yeah, we don't have to have women in these jobs anymore. We just hire the guy that looks like me, and he doesn't have to have the same, quality. He doesn't have to go to college. He doesn't have to do all the extra stuff that this woman did to get into this position. And it's like, yeah, now we're here. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's just it's so crazy, and, like, it's worse for women there too for you guys because you guys don't even have, like, maternity leave, which is, like, why we have 18 months, like, it's just such a
yeah,
concept to me, and so I think it does, like, put of course, you wanna, like, when you're freshly postpartum, stay home with your baby, and it makes women, like, vulnerable in that and susceptible to propaganda.
yeah,
And yeah, so I hope that we're able to like turn film into more of a direction of, things like Sinners where we're able to like see it a little bit better. Like, after I showed my husband Sinners, and he's not the most like well versed on history, we had this like really insightful conversation about like colonialism and like the Jim Crow era of the South and like a conversation about how like yes, slavery ended on paper, but just new systems were then created to keep black
yeah,
people down and systems that are present today and then, in reflection of our own country, like systems that that are in place for the indigenous community, like, foster schools. We had the 60s scoop, like adoptions, a lot of the Ministry of Children and Family stuff is all based on, residential schools don't exist, but these entire systems still do that keep these people oppressed. And like it was like a very insightful conversation for like following a vampire movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of the important things, those talks after a movie. Like, just like any type of art is very communal. And I think that's one of the things we kind of losing with, always being on the phones. Is that even though this is the way you and I are talking, but it's like having that ability to turn to the person next to you, or even being in the theater walking out and somebody starts talking and then you just enter the conversation. You have a conversation about whatever film you watch. Like that's that spark that all art needs to move on, especially if it's going to be seen as important.
Mhm. Like, I think the 2 instances in, like, the last couple of years where I've seen that, like that feeling, that, like, buzz in the theater was Wicked. Um, seeing people show up, but I mean, of course, theater kids are always gonna commit to a bit. I did too, I wore all pink, but, like, seeing people dressed in pink and green, and then in Barbie, seeing women who are, like, probably played with, like, the original Barbie being, like, in their 70s dressed head to toe pink down to, like, little girls and moms, and, like, you could see everybody together, like, holding hands in the theater. You're like, "This is so powerful," and, like, although I love Barbie, but it's very entry level feminism, but, like, to talk about, like, that was just so important, and I hope that there's more of that going on.
No, I mean, even with Barbie being surface level, it was very helpful to have people talk about it, to have people have a feminist discourse about what's going on, about the patriarchy and stuff like that. Like, I get it. Like, it didn't touch on everything. It didn't go as deep as it could have gone. But the fact that it did it, and the
Mhm,
fact that it got ton of people into the movie theaters to see it. The
mhm,
fact that Warner Brothers, and I give shout out to Warner Bros. As bad as Dave Zaslav is with a lot of what he's done with HBO Max and stuff like that, I will say this: he allows the creators to create. Because the fact that we got Barbie, we got Oppenheimer, we got Sinners, we got One Battle After Another, we got Weapons, we get all of these movies that are trying to say something about what's going on at the current moment or what they see is about to happen. And I appreciated that, they're not the ones stopping it from coming out, especially with a lot of people, cutting their nose, especially for comedians that are their late night talk shows on their platform and getting rid of them just so they can bend the knee and be okay in the future as far as money, because we've gotten to the point where capitalism, the one thing that can ruin cinema and it can ruin just any art in general is capitalism. The only thing that saves it is the people. Like I do rap and, capitalism, they feel like the best thing when it comes to this type of art form is, young black man rapping about eradicating each other. And, we have the people that seep through, the Kendricks that seep through, the J. Coles that seep through. And when you see them, I was like, they're not an outlier. They're not these very special artists and they're the only ones that can do it. There's tons that can do it. The thing is, we're at a point where just like when it comes to film, you have to find those voices because the mainstream is never going to give it to you. And sometimes those voices, your Kendricks, is your Ryan Coogler's,
Mm,
your J. Cole's, or your Paul Thomas. That you have these people that can have these voices because they've already built the ability to have it. But there are other people that are putting out movies now that are going to be as important or as important as those movies, and you just have to see it, and you just got to look for it, and you just got to make sure you keep your ears to the street.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, the supporting of independent I mean, that's part of why I did so much with the Vancouver International Film Festival. I mean, we were pretty, like, super privileged to get Mark Maron. We got all the Cannes winners this year were all there. I saw a bunch of stuff from TIFF, but, like, it was a lot of, like, independent Canadian cinema, and a lot of each, like, beforehand blurb was talking about, like, "Look, we're gonna lose this if we don't keep doing it." And, like, here, we're pretty vulnerable because so much of this stuff is shot in, Vancouver and
Yeah.
Toronto, and it gives a lot of like, the film industry in Canada is largely based out of those 2 cities. Like, people are gonna lose a lot of jobs if Trump continues to fall through with these, like, 100% whatever. I don't know, I can't keep up with
Yeah.
them all the time. Last time it was 100%
Yeah,
Tar
yeah, that's what he said last time. And I was like, you know how many TV shows, especially TV shows and movies that film in Vancouver alone? Like one of my favorite shows, Psych. I knew it filmed in Vancouver, but a lot of people go to Vancouver to film. Like, and the unfortunate thing, it's cheaper to go out the country than it is to film here. There's a TV show where there's 100 contestants, and I think they film it in Belgrade. They fly them all from the United States to a different country because it's way cheaper to do that than to do it in a studio here. And I mean, there's a ton of people, the Best Boys, Electric, all of them are losing jobs here
Mhm,
because it's just not affordable to do it. Like Marvel's already leaving Atlanta. They built a whole studio in Atlanta and now they're about to leave
mm,
because it's cheaper to do it out the country now. So like we're just in this weird place where even I can't see what he's doing because he's still trying to make it worse. But it's like he's not doing anything to help the film industry to be able to keep it here.
mhm,
And he probably won't because whoever has, the biggest coffer for anybody else, he's just going to go with them. And if Warner Brothers or anybody says this is what we want to do and they slide some money towards him, he'll do it.
yeah. And I think yeah, and they're not gonna want to do I don't know, he's not gonna wanna have arts is always the first thing to get, like, defunded when there's arriving conservatism because art in its nature criticizes the world around it.
Yeah,
And
that's I get jealous watching other countries and then like before a movie comes on and it's like funded by British Film Institute, funded by like other countries actually fund the arts, especially when it comes to film. And in the United States, that is not a thing unless you have some states do it, but it's not a national thing. I mean, 28 Days Later, the most famous scene in that movie is them shutting down that area in London, but they were only able to get that done because they had funding from the British government to make that movie. And the fact that a lot of times when these fundings come in, they allow you to say what you want to say. They don't give a prerequisite that, well, since we give you this money, you can't say anything about the government or anything like that. It's like, no, you got this money. We're just giving money. We don't know what you're doing, and we're not going to stop you from what you're doing. That's another thing. We don't have backers to help other people create. I do appreciate all the actors that are getting into producing and making sure that these other voices are being heard because I feel like we're at a point where, independent cinema is hard to do. There could only be so many GoFundMe's and Kickstarters to make these things happen. And a lot of people don't have the time to make these things happen. I had a friend who's just got his short. Now he's having them in a bunch of festivals, but it took him almost 6 years to make just one short. And, at certain points, I got to do my feature film. And is that going to take me 12 years? Like that time period and that time consuming, especially when you don't have the funds to do it, is very hard. And I wish we had the whole concept of like backers again, where, that was the thing. Before we wanted to eat the rich was actually helpful to making like art happen and making sure that people that didn't have a voice had a voice. And now it just seems like, especially here in America, the American dream came very narcissistic and it became very me in isolation of the group that I'm in. And I won't give anything. And a lot of times, especially like conservative art, doesn't really reach anything. It's really just play for the people that are in that space. And the fact that, the money's not trickling down to these artists, that artists can't go to New York and be able to have, the affordability to live. Because art dies when you're starving.
Mhm.
Like, you can hear stories like, oh, Basquiat, he was out on the streets and stuff like that. But like, he also had Andy Warhol at any given moment. He also had the ability to create his art and be in a space where he felt safe. He didn't have to always be in survival mode. There's a ton of great artists, some of the greatest artists we probably never heard of because they had to get a 9 to 5. And
Mhm.
that's the unfortunate thing, that we don't have the ability to be funded to create the things that we want to do. When it comes to me doing music, like I know it's not only time consuming, but it takes money away from me and the people that I care about. But it's like, it's a thing I have to do because it's who I am at the end of the day. But I also know that unless somebody else is backing me or helping me fund this whole project, I got to do it. And this is 5 to 6 figures of doing something that could possibly get hurt, could possibly not get hurt. It's always a gamble when you're do anything independently. And it's always easier when you got a cushion and you can create in a space knowing that I'm not taking food out of my mouth or somebody else's so I can do this. That I can feel
Mhm.
comfortable and still get out my same message with the same ferocious and the same hunger just through the arts.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredibly hard for people to get started. One of my best friends, Mark, he's in a punk band with his brother. And, like, they are like, they've been trying to get their band going for they've been a band for, like, 10 years, and they are awesome. Like, they're so good, like, they play I mean, him and I became friends because we both love Green Day, like, a really stupid amount. I've seen Green Day live, and I've seen them live, and they play like they're in T-Mobile Stadium like Green Day does, like, they're incredible, and, they're unfortunately, like, Victoria is not, like, the music epicenter, and,
Yeah,
they're 2 punk guys in their mid-30s, like, it's not the demographic of music that's at all popular anymore, like, and B, they're not, like, 2 guys that, like, you would necessarily, like, like, that's not it's a lot easier to get discovered when you're, like, a Sabrina Carpenter looking girl.
yeah,
Or I don't know, or when they're plugging somebody into a space like a Post Malone or whatever, they're like, "You'll do until we throw you into country music."
yeah.
You're more palatable to more people.
Yeah, because the whole, "Oh, I see myself in this person." Oh,
Yeah.
it's a lot much easier to listen to it because I don't have to deal with the realities of the possible racial stuff that might come out of it. I'm kinda safe, so I can easily listen to it and vibe. That's why, and that streamer where he, like, just skipped all through, GID's album, and he was like, "Oh, I can't vibe to this. I can't vibe to this. I can't vibe to this." And it's like, rap has never been about vibes.
No.
I was like, the biggest thing about a rapper is his lyrics and what he's saying. That's why I like the whole ghostwriter thing is such a huge thing because when it comes to rap, it has to come from you. You have to be the one putting pen to paper about what your experience are and not even your experience, what your storytelling ability is and all it is. And with hip hop, it feels like people want to just be passive. They just want to hear music, hear some words, hear music, hear some words, hear some things like this is where we jump in, chant, and then I get back out. But there's no feeling. There's no spirit to it. That's like going back to Sinners, the scene, I mean, the roof is on fire scene. And that is one of like in the last few years, I always say that was movie magic. That's
Mhm.
a thing that like if I ever like if somebody's never been to a black church and got that feeling of communal and the concept of the Holy Spirit and just what goes through you, that was that scene where it's a song that you never heard before, you have no connection to, but the music is saying something to you. It's making you feel something. It's
Mhm.
making you want to clap your hands. It makes you want to get up. It makes you want to holler. It makes you, it gives a very primal and spiritual feeling that goes through your body.
Mhm.
And I feel like if you're doing anything, especially when it comes to music, where you're making music, and if that's not a connection that you're trying to gain, then what are you doing it for?
Mhm.
I feel like one of my biggest things is like the biggest thing, the greatest thing I can ever hear from somebody is, "Hey, I heard this song, and the song meant so much to me. This song helped me through this, and this." That's
Mhm.
the biggest compliment you had because that means you had some type of impact with your art. Like it's cool, you can make all the millions of dollars and stuff like that, but are you fulfilled with what you actually did? There's tons of people that had one hit wonders, one hour wonders, had a great run, but nobody can't remember any of their music. And if they do remember their music, they're like, that was a fad. That was a fun time. It turns into a joke.
Mhm.
And like, what are you leaving behind and what's gonna be left when they mention you as an artist and what are they gonna say about you? And how did your music make them feel? Because at the end of the day, I feel like that's the most important thing when you're creating art.
Absolutely. I think you just like there's that scene for sure from Sinners That Did It, and there is a scene where Delta Slim is talking about his friend that gets lynched, and
Yeah.
it's like the oh, okay, like every time I see it, like makes me cry. But he's like hitting his leg, and he starts to just try and like suppress tears, and with that
Yeah.
sound, he starts to sing, and
The
you
black church hum where it's like you're going through the pain and you do the mm-hmm, and it's like it's that guttural part of the blues. Like I said, my family's from Mississippi. We're from the Delta. That movie connects with me in a different way because like I always represent Virginia, but I always represent Mississippi. Mississippi has the highest population of black folks. But the issue is a lot of people up north look down on the South because of the racism that is portrayed there, but forget about how many black people have to deal with that on a daily basis.
Mhm.
And that pain just has never left. That Jim Crow still hovers over the Delta, still hovers over Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Texas. It's still there. And it's not said out loud, but the whole stay in your place is still there.
Mhm.
And the one thing that got us out and the one thing that kept us safe just internally was the music, was being the ability to sing through the pain. Like you got to think about it from blues to jazz to rock. A lot of it is rebellion. A lot of it is singing through trauma. Even when hip hop came, it came from the 70s in the South Bronx where you had landlords and the government burning down buildings so that black people couldn't live in them. And to make sure that they can put a highway through the Bronx so that it can get through, so the government can have it get through and just people getting constantly displaced. And they made this music that was party music because one thing about black people, even through all the pain and all the hurt, we find dark humor in it, but we also find the ability to look at one each other and live through it. We still have fun. We still have a great time because we still love one another. We know at the end of the day, we're all we got and we're not going to let them get us down. We're still going to have a good time. We're still going to party. And sinners, they are sharecroppers. They are in the field breaking their backs every day picking cotton. But this one moment of them being in this place and being able to let go, they didn't even have the money to spend it. But to be in this place to dance and to let go
Mhm.
meant a lot because it's like I can find this joy in this moment. And that's why hip hop started off as party. And then it was like, all right, we got that. Now we got stuff we need to address. Now we got Public Enemy. Now we got, NWA. We got to put the mirror to what they have been doing to us this whole time period. And, it's gone back and forth because that's just the dichotomy of being a black person in the United States. Sometimes you gotta laugh from crying, and sometimes you gotta cry through laughing. But at the end of the day, you still gotta live your life, and you can't let them get you down.
Black American culture permeates the West in like everything.
Yeah,
Like, everything to do with creative arts to fashion to hair to everything all stems from Black creatives. But like I live in like the whitest place in the universe. Like I did not meet a Black person until I was 9. I had never like, and yet it still permeates so deeply into the zeitgeist everywhere in the West. Yeah, the only sort of concept I have, and like I watched a lot of classic, I still watch a lot of classic film, and like the amount of like groundwork my parents had to do to be like, all of this is wrong. Here's the history behind this, because we watching things like Gone with the Wind, for instance, as a kid. And like my parents, like after watching that movie, sat me down and were like, none of that was true. This is the horrible things that happened. All of these people are villains. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like no one was a good slaveholder, like, not like in these systems. And then you see these ideals start to come back and you're like, what are we doing? Like, it's so sad. And and like, again, back to Sinners, that is like, white people love the blues just fine. They don't love the people who make them. And it's
Yeah.
just so much of our culture, like, it wouldn't have the light and the beauty and the kind of like magic to it, I guess, would be how I would frame it, without, these artists and these creatives who get, almost no credit.
I mean, it's the thing Andre 3000 says in the song Hey Ya. He was like, y'all don't want to hear me, y'all just want to dance.
Mhm,
Like, you don't want to hear the things I'm saying, but you hear the beat, you just want to dance. You just want to have a good time and not deal with any harsh realities that I'm mentioning at this moment. And that's kind of where the state of a lot of people are in. Like you said earlier, a lot of things are going on in this world, but people just want to bypass it. They don't want to deal with it, because when you have to deal with it, then you have to go, hey, that's not right.
mhm.
A lot of people feel better standing on the sidelines, because I'm currently reading All About Love by Bell Hooks. And one of the things it mentions is about the whole concept of, like, if you lead with love, especially when you're in community and stuff like that, you would never allow your fellow man to be oppressed.
Mhm.
You will always stand up. You wouldn't always go, that's not my fight. You would always go, no, like, especially if you have some type of power, you will always stand up for them when you know that they can't. And I feel like a lot of people, it's easier to just fall into the norm. It's easier to fall into the malaise of, well, that's just how things have always been. But why do they always have to be that way? It's okay to be like, you know what? I think it should end here. And it's okay to just be like, I see the plight you're going through, rather than me just going like, hey, I see it. I'll put up the black box just to say, hey, I got solidarity with you. No, I'll actually be next to you. Or maybe I'll be in front of you to shield you from whatever is coming. Because that's when you have that type of love, the oppression of capitalism, the oppression of the patriarchal society can't bend it.
Mhm.
At a certain point, it bends to the will of everything that's going on. That's how the civil rights movement worked here. It could only hold up against it so much, but when there is a roar and when there's a fire, especially with the people, it's always going to win out.
And that's what I'm trying to do with like my small platform that I have. Like, I realize, like, as like a white woman, although I have experienced like sexism and stuff in my life, but for the most part, like Michelle Wolf does this amazing thing where she's like, white women were oppressed, but we were oppressed under like a duvet, like, and so I try to use my platform to speak out of Palestine, and, when I was doing things like the Summer of Spielberg, I talked about The Color Purple, and, how, criticized him a lot for, he got an opportunity he shouldn't have. As much as I love him, he deserved to be completely criticized for that, and, just amplify other voices. And I don't know, like, I look at my daughter's face and I just see the world in her eyes, and I think, God, I just want everybody's kids to be okay.
Yeah.
I just want to so I try to do it, and, like, I don't know, like, I think I just would rather be accused of being, like, virtue signally and a libtard, which I get so many comments on that I always delete. That's my top YouTube troll comment, is fucking libtard. But I think I don't know. I don't know, like, I just grew up in a home where there none of those values were like, my parents are I don't know, my parents were like, "Yeah, everybody's the same. We're all the same. We haven't all experienced the same things." And, like, I went to a predominantly, like, indigenous school, and a little girl didn't wanna play with me because I was white, and I was, like, really hurt, and, like, instead of my parents being like, "Oh, that's terrible, whatever," my mom at, like, 6 years old sat me down and told me about residential schools. She's like, "There's way more to this than that." She's like, "This
Yeah.
is why." She's like, "The residential schools here closed in 1997." Like,
Mm.
people my siblings' age went to residential schools. She's like, "That comes from something, and, like, y that's actually fine. She doesn't wanna play with you." Like, there's way more going on there, and I just so when I go out into the world and I meet people that weren't raised like that, I'm like, "What is wrong with you?" Like, why? I don't know. But I have this has been a great conversation. I didn't realize how much time had passed. This has been awesome. Uh, so I'll put you through the questionnaire that I ask everybody.
All right.
It's the Inside the Actor Studio questionnaire. James Lipton got it from his hero, Bernard Pivot, and it's sort of an acting exercise to warm people up. But as I come from a predominantly acting background, I make everybody do it. So, physics, what's your favorite word?
Dope.
Dope?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your least favorite word?
Regression.
What turns you on creatively?
Uh, Being able to perform my music on stage and connect with the crowd.
What turns you off creatively?
Having to record my music in a studio. I get too much in my head. And then it's like, is the song ever going to come out? And then I eventually like it, but I don't like anything I do after I record it. It takes a while, but it's the hardest thing.
And what's your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
What sound or noise do you love?
Do we keep this PG? I don't know.
No, no, no. I swear the whole time. Go nuts.
No, I mean, favorite sound is sound of lovemaking. That's my favorite sound.
It's not a bad one.
No, it's a great sound.
What sound or noise do you hate?
A rubbing of a balloon.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
A film producer. I
Oh,
go back and forth like, do I want to direct or do I want to film produce? And I was like, I think film produce. Direct might be down the line, but film producing, I think I could do.
what profession other than your own would you not like to attempt?
Mining.
Yeah.
Love my lungs. I was going lungs. It was throwing me off. Love my lungs, but I couldn't do it.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You had some great times. It wasn't always easy. A lot of times it was hard, but you lived a great life. You touched a lot of people and, put out great art and you'll live on. And now you're here and, it's time for you to be able to breathe, relax, be in a better space and be here with those that you've lost in the past.
It's beautiful. Can you please tell everybody where to find your socials and then also your music as well?
I'm everywhere as physics PHZ_SICKS on TikTok, Instagram, Letterbox, Twitter. If you want to see my movie reviews and everything, that is on TikTok and Instagram. If you want my views on politics, basketball, just random stuff going on in the world, that's on Twitter. Also, when it comes to me, PHZ-Sicks.com. I have vinyls. I have my own gear. Also, if you want to find my music, PHZ-Sicks on all streaming platforms. My last album's on there. We are in the Halloween season, so Daniel Robitaille, which is the name of Candyman. I have a song on there called, and if on TikTok, I will be dropping Halloween inspired songs starting tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, check out the music. And if you like anything, always hit me up. I'm always willing to talk to anybody.
So, well, thank you so, so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.